I've always been close to my cousin Cole. We were the same age, practically grew up together, and had a bond that made childhood exciting. Elementary school was more fun because we were always in the same class. After school, we rode bikes, played video games, and stayed over at each other's houses so often that it felt like we were brothers. But one night, when we were 12, that bond was tested in a way we never expected. It was a Friday in late May, one of those nights where summer was creeping in, and the excitement of the weekend made the air feel lighter. We were at Cole's house, goofing around like usual, when my mom called. Our grandpa was in the hospital. It wasn't life-threatening, but my parents and Cole's parents were going to stay the night with our grandma. That left us alone. Well, not completely. Cole's older brother, Hunter, was home too. At 15, he mostly did his own thing and let us be. It was perfect. We ordered pizza, cracked jokes, and spent the night exactly how two kids our age would, laughing and feeling invincible. But then at 9 p.m. sharp, there was a knock at the door. Cole went to answer it while I stayed back. Something about it felt off. Standing there were two men. They looked too old to be out this late without a real reason, but they introduced themselves as city workers, said they were investigating reports of low water pressure in the neighborhood. Then they asked the question that changed everything. Are your parents home? Cole, without thinking, said no. That was the mistake. Hunter, hearing the conversation, stepped in. Our water pressure's fine, he said firmly. Try the other houses. The men hesitated. They lingered for just a second too long before finally walking away. Something about their slow retreat, the way they sized us up, sent a chill down my spine. But we were kids. We shrugged it off. Hours later, we decided to sleep in the same room, Cole and Hunter in their beds, and me in a sleeping bag on the floor. We talked about nonsense until exhaustion took over. Then in the dead of night, I woke up. At first, I didn't know why. Then it hit me. I needed to use the bathroom. Groggy and half awake, I slipped out of my sleeping bag and quietly made my way down the hall. That's when I heard it, a noise coming from the family room. I froze. My first thought, maybe Hunter was up, grabbing a snack. But when I peeked into the bedroom, both Hunter and Cole were still asleep. My stomach knotted. That meant someone else was inside the house. Now let me stop right here and ask you, if you were in my position, would you wake your cousin and brother up? Or would you try to check it out yourself? Tell me in the comments. I need to know what you'd do. I chose to wake them up. I shook Cole's shoulder first, then Hunter's. Whispering, I told them what I heard. Their faces drained of color. Moving silently, we tiptoed out of the bedroom and into the hallway. Step by step, we edged toward the family room, careful not to make a single sound. Then we saw them, the two men from earlier. They were rummaging through drawers, stuffing valuables into bags. For a moment, we stood frozen in sheer terror. Then instinct kicked in. We ran. Bolting for the front door, our only thought was to escape. Somehow in the chaos, we managed to unlock it, throw it open, and sprint outside. Our feet barely touched the ground. And then, pure luck. A police car was driving by at that exact moment. We flailed our arms, screaming for help. The officer hit the brakes and jumped out. The next few moments were a blur. He called for backup, and within minutes, several more cops arrived. They stormed the house, catching the men before they could escape. Turned out, they'd gotten in through a broken window in the laundry room. They must have noticed earlier that there were no adults home, and figured we'd be easy to overpower. But here's the worst part. While the police handled everything, neighbors started gathering outside to see what was happening. Some of them were kids from our school, and we had run out of the house in our underwear. Yeah, you heard that right. Standing there in nothing but briefs, we watched as everyone stared at us. The snickers, the whispering, the looks. It was beyond humiliating. By Monday, the entire school knew. The teasing didn't stop for weeks. Surviving a break-in, we handled it. But surviving the embarrassment, that was another story. So tell me, if this had happened to you, would you rather be caught in your underwear or take your chances against the burglars? Let me know in the comments. It was late, near the end of my shift. My manager handed me the last order of the night. A single large pizza. Nothing unusual except the address. I'd never delivered there before, which was strange, considering I knew almost every regular spot in town. When I punched the address into my GPS, it pulled up an old apartment complex on the far edge of town, right by the highway, a part of town no one really goes to. The drive started normal, empty streets, a few passing cars. But as I got closer, the vibe changed. Streetlights were flickering, the buildings looked forgotten. Rundown storefronts, boarded up windows. It felt like driving into a ghost town. Then I saw it, the apartment complex, if you could even call it that. Paint peeling, windows dark, not a single car in the lot. I double-checked the receipt. The address matched. I almost turned around right there. But it was my last delivery. I just wanted to be done. I grabbed the pizza and headed to the front door. That's when I noticed it, a handwritten note, taped right to the glass. Delivered to basement door, basement door. Most apartments don't even let you near the basement, and this place barely looked livable. For a moment I stood there debating, but the note looked fresh, clean paper, bold black ink. It hadn't been there long. If I bailed, I'd just get grief from my manager. So I stepped inside. The lobby was worse than the outside, dim, with a single bare light bulb buzzing overhead. The walls smelled damp. The carpet squished under my shoes, like it hadn't dried out in years. At the end of the hall, I spotted it. A door marked basement. The metal handle was rusted, worn smooth from years of use. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed, "Leave the pizza and go," but I didn't. I pulled the door open. The hinges shrieked. If you were standing in a creepy abandoned building with nothing but a pizza in your hands, and you saw a note telling you to go into the basement, would you do it? Or would you turn around and leave? Let me know in the comments, because I really wish I had. The stairs were steep and narrow. Each step groaned under my weight. The air got colder, thicker, and somewhere below, I heard it, a low hum. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaky. "Pizza delivery?" No answer. I reached the bottom and found a long, dim hallway, lined with doors. Most were shut tight, but one at the far end stood slightly open. A pale light spilled out, flickering like candlelight, and the hum? It was clearer now, not from a machine. Voices, low, murmuring, like a chant in a language I didn't understand. I froze, heart pounding. My mouth was dry. "Hello?" I tried again. The voices stopped. Silence. I should have left, I know that. But something about that half-open door pulled me in, like I needed to see. So I walked forward, slowly. Each footstep echoed like a drum beat in the empty hall. The room was small, concrete walls, one flickering lamp on a battered table, and in the center, people. A group of them, sitting cross-legged in a circle, backs turned to me. They didn't move, didn't speak. "I've got your pizza," I said, voice shaking. Nothing. I stepped closer, holding the box like a shield. "Hello?" Then one of them turned, slowly. Their face was pale, eyes wide, lips cracked, mouth hanging open, like they'd forgotten how to close it. And they were staring, not at the pizza, at me. One by one, the others turned too. Same hollow eyes, same lifeless expressions. My hand trembled. The box nearly slipped from my grip. Who ordered this?" I stammered. No answer, just silence. Then the first one stood up, jerkily, like their joints didn't work right. The others followed, in perfect sync. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the doorframe. That's when they started walking toward me. Slow, deliberate, eyes locked on mine. I couldn't breathe. I dropped the pizza and ran. My footsteps pounded against the concrete floor. The hallway stretched longer than before, like I was running in place. Behind me, the soft shuffle of bare feet. Getting faster, I hit the stairs, scrambling up on all fours. My lungs burned. My hands slipped on the railing, but I didn't look back. When I burst into the lobby, I slammed the basement door shut and leaned against it, gasping for air. Silence. Nothing chased me. I didn't wait around. I sprinted to my car, tires screeching as I tore out of the lot. At home, I tried to convince myself it was a prank. Some weird cult thing. But nothing explained those faces, the way they moved, the way they stared. I quit the next day, told my manager I was done, no explanation. But the worst part? Last night, someone left a note on my doorstep. It said, "Basement delivery, 1 large pizza." And my GPS. It's already routed to the same apartment complex. You'd think the worst part of a delivery job is a bad tip or a rude customer. But what if the job almost cost you your life? This isn't just a story. It's a warning. It was my last week working at an Italian restaurant. Half pizzeria, half sit-down spot. My shifts were always changing. Sometimes I ran the register, sometimes I bussed tables. But deliveries were my favorite. Fast cash. Good tips. I never thought my final delivery would end with me questioning if I'd even make it home alive. It was a late-night order, 3 specialty pizzas, around $70. But the address? Bad side of town. Not the kind of place you want to be after dark. Red flag number 1. I almost asked someone else to take the delivery. But I drove an old Civic, nothing flashy. I figured I'd be fine. 15 minutes later, I'm standing at the front door, pizzas in hand. I ring the bell, and within seconds, the door creaks open. There he was. A middle-aged Latino man, blank expression, eyes locked on the pizzas. Then he steps out fully, and I see it. A pistol, gripped tightly in his hand, held just low enough to make sure I noticed. My stomach dropped. My brain froze. This is how people die. What would you do right now? Run, beg, fight? Drop your answer in the comments. Because what happened next still haunts me. 2 more guys appeared behind him, voices sharp, fast, yelling in Spanish. Before I could move, they yanked me inside. The man with the gun growled in broken English, "Give me everything, wallet, phone, even my watch." One of them ripped it off my wrist like they'd done this 1,000 times. Then it got worse. One guy pulled my ID from my wallet, squinting at it under the dim hallway light. He read my address out loud, word by word, like he was memorizing it. "You call cops? We come here. Kill your family." My legs nearly gave out. I nodded, swallowing tears. "Okay, I won't, I swear." They shoved me out the door. Hard. I hit the concrete steps, palms scraping open, knees bleeding. The door slammed shut behind me. I was alive, but barely holding it together. I didn't go back to the restaurant. I drove straight home, shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. My parents saw the blood on my knees, the panic in my face. I tried to lie. But how do you explain that kind of fear? I told them everything. The threats, the gun, the ID. That's when my dad made a decision I wasn't sure was brave or reckless. He had connections in the police department. One call later, they were running a background check. The man, Rodrigo, 4 felony convictions. An hour later, a squad of police cars swarmed the house. I wasn't there, but my dad's friend told us what happened. 2 of the guys were still inside. Guns drawn, they were dragged out in cuffs. Rodrigo, life sentence. His buddy, 5 years. But the 3rd guy, gone. To this day, they never found him. Sometimes, late at night, when my window's open, I swear I hear footsteps along the side of the house. The creak of the gate swinging. Maybe it's paranoia. Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe it's a reminder that some threats don't end when the door slams shut. What do you think? Is he gone for good or still watching? Tell me in the comments. And if you ever work delivery late at night, stay alert. You never know who's really waiting behind that door. Two years of delivering pizzas, same routine, drive, drop off, collect payment. Most nights it's boring, but one delivery, it wasn't just strange. It was the last one I ever made. It was close to midnight when the order came in. The address was on the outskirts of town, near the industrial district. If you've ever driven through one of those areas at night, you know the vibe. Isolated, dead, quiet, like the world forgot about it. The drive was uneventful at first. Empty streets, flickering streetlights. But the deeper I got into that part of town, the darker everything felt. Not just the lack of lights. The air itself felt heavier. I pulled up to an ordinary-looking house. Small, worn, nothing out of place. But then I saw him. A man stood at the edge of the driveway. Tall, gray jacket, jeans, completely still. His face caught the edge of my headlights and he was smiling. Not the polite thanks for the pizza kind of smile. This was stretched, forced, like someone trying to imitate happiness but not understanding it. I hesitated but grabbed the pizza and got out. "Hey, got your order here?" I called. Nothing, just that frozen smile and unblinking eyes. I kept my pace steady. "It's $22.50, I said, holding out the box. Slowly he reached into his pocket and pulled out coins. "Exact chain," he muttered, calm and deliberate. But here's where it got weird. He counted the coins one by one, out loud, holding each up to the streetlight before dropping it into his other hand. 1, 2, 3. It took longer than it should have. The air grew colder. My fingers stiffened around the pizza box. I glanced back at my car. The headlights lit the driveway, but everything beyond was swallowed in pitch black. Finally, he handed me the money. His hand brushed mine, ice cold. I shoved the pizza into his grip, desperate to leave, but he didn't move. Instead, his smile widened. He tilted his head, like studying an insect. "You drive fast," he said quietly. "Too fast sometimes." I froze. How could he know that? I'd never seen him before. Thanks," I muttered, backing away. My heart pounded with every step. I got in my car, fired up the engine, and sped off. Now here's the part I need you to think about. If you were in my shoes, coins counted, cold hand, that smile, would you have finished the delivery or dropped the pizza and run? Let me know in the comments. I want to see how many of you would have handled it differently. But the nightmare didn't end there. I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, holding the pizza, smiling. I drove faster. The industrial district blurred past, my tires screeching around corners. The tension in my chest eased as I hit the main road. But then I saw him again, far behind me, but unmistakable. Same gray jacket, same jeans, same smile. I floored it. There was no way he could be following me, not on foot. I didn't stop until I reached the pizza shop. The lights were off. Everyone had gone home. I sat in the parking lot, trying to calm down, and that's when my phone buzzed. My stomach dropped. My hand tightened around the phone as I slowly looked up. He was there, standing at the edge of the lot, just beyond the reach of the flickering streetlight. That same smile, unfazed, unmoving. I didn't wait to find out what he wanted. I threw the car into reverse and peeled out of there, tires screeching. I never went back to work after that. But here's the thing. That night, it's been months, and every so often, I get the same text. Drive safe, no number, no explanation, just 2 words. If you've ever ordered pizza late at night, have you ever wondered what your delivery driver might be walking into? I'm Emma Rodriguez, and after 8 months at Slice of Heaven Pizza, I thought I'd seen it all until the night I knocked on the door of 742 Maple Street. It looked like every other house. tan with brown shutters, a neatly trimmed lawn, the kind of place where nothing bad should ever happen. The order was simple: 2 large pepperoni pizzas, cash payment, no red flags. I grabbed the heated bag from my passenger seat and walked up the concrete path. The porch light cast a weak yellow circle around the front door. My work shoes echoed on the walkway. That's when it hit me. The silence. No TVs, no muffled conversation, not even a dog barking. I rang the doorbell. Ding dong. The door opened, but not all the way. Just a crack, enough for a hand to slip through. A man's hand, pale, wearing a black sleeve. Something about the grip on the doorframe made the hair on my neck stand up. "Pizza delivery," I said, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. "Come inside for a moment." Flat, emotionless, like a recording. I froze. My instincts screamed no. "I'll just leave these here," I replied, raising the boxes. "Cash or card?" Then his hand shot out. "If you were in my shoes, held by the wrist, standing outside a stranger's house, what would you do? Drop the pizzas and run? Fight back? Comment below. I'll tell you what I did next. Ready?" His fingers dug into my wrist, bone-crushingly tight. Not the grip of someone paying for pizza, the grip of someone in control. "Come inside," he repeated. "But here's the thing. The shop trains us for this. Rule number 1, never go inside. Rule number 2, the pizzas are your shield." I twisted my wrist and yanked back, keeping a death grip on the pizza boxes. His hand slipped, and for a second, we just stood there. The porch light flickered. Then he lunged. I didn't think. I reacted. I shoved the boxes into his chest, the heat searing through the thin cardboard. His face twisted in surprise. My free hand flew to the pepper spray on my belt. Safety protocol, always be prepared. The second he saw the canister, his expression changed, from cold calculation to frustrated rage. "I'm leaving," I said, voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding my veins. "Drop the pizzas. Call the cops. End of story." It worked. He stumbled back, door creaking shut. I didn't wait. I dropped the pizzas, sprinted to my car, locked the doors, and called my manager. The cops arrived fast. Turns out 742 Maple Street had history. A lot of it. Suspicious activity, missing packages, other drivers reporting weird encounters. 2 weeks later, I got a call. They'd arrested him. He was connected to multiple attempted assaults on delivery drivers and service workers. The detective said my quick thinking and my report helped build their case. Some nights when it's quiet, I still think about 742 Maple Street, about how close I came to becoming another headline. But you know what? I still wear the uniform. I still grab the delivery bag, because life doesn't stop, and neither do I. Now let me ask you again, what would you have done? What would you do if the person delivering your food never existed? If every driver was just a mask for something far more sinister? This isn't just a glitch in the app, it's something darker. And it happened to me. It was a quiet afternoon. The kind where you enjoy the silence after a long morning of cleaning. By 1 p.m., hunger hit me, so I decided to order lunch through Uber Eats. Simple, right? I picked a meal, placed the order, and sat down to watch TV while waiting. Just a few minutes later, the app buzzed. A driver named Anthony had accepted my order. He was riding a bike, no profile picture, no previous deliveries. Weird? Maybe, but I just laughed it off. First day on the job? Guess I'm his first customer? I thought, but 30 minutes passed. The app didn't update. Anthony hadn't moved, not an inch. I figured it was a glitch or maybe he got lost, so I contacted Uber support. They couldn't reach him either. They apologized and reassigned my order to another driver, Lori. And this is where it got really strange. Lori was exactly like Anthony. Same location, same bike, no profile picture, no past deliveries. At this point I was annoyed, but still more hungry than worried. 20 more minutes passed. No movement, no messages, nothing. I sent a quick text through the app. "Hi, is everything okay with the order?" Seen, but no reply. "Okay, hold on. If this happened to you, 2 drivers, same spot, no history. Would you wait longer or cancel the order? Tell me in the comments, because what happened next made me wish I had canceled right away." Frustrated, I reached out to support again. This time, they reassigned me to a 3rd driver, Robert. And guess what? Same spot, same bike, no picture, no delivery history. But before I could cancel, Robert suddenly picked up my order and sent me a message. "Sorry for the delay. Don't worry, I have your food. But I need your phone number." "Excuse me. Why do you need my number? We can just message here," I replied. His next message came immediately. "Just give me your number. It's important." That's when the hunger vanished, replaced by dread. I didn't reply. Instead, I contacted Uber support and asked them to cancel the order. Within seconds, I was connected to their safety team. They assured me the order was canceled, I'd get a refund, and they'd investigate the strange interactions. For a moment, I felt calmer. Maybe it was just a creepy scam. But then, someone knocked on my door. "Miss, I have your food." The voice was deep, slow, and deliberate. It didn't sound like someone delivering lunch. It sounded like someone testing the situation. Even worse, the Uber safety agent on the phone heard it too. "Is that him?" she asked, her voice tightening. I peeked through the window. My main door was open, but the metal screen door was locked. He stood there holding a plain brown bag. No logo, just a bag. And when he saw me on the phone, his smile vanished. His face twisted into anger. He stepped closer, almost pressing his face against the screen. "Who are you talking to? Let me in. I have your food." I froze. Food? I hadn't told him to come. The order was canceled. I told him to leave, politely at first, but he kept pushing, shouting, grabbing the doorknob. "Open the door, now!" The woman on the phone was panicking too. "Lock the door, call the police." I slammed the heavy door shut and locked it. He didn't leave. He started kicking the door, pounding on it like he was trying to break through. My heart was racing. My hands were shaking. Finally, silence. I waited, barely breathing. Then footsteps. I peeked through the window again. He was walking away, slowly, back toward the street. For a moment I thought it was over, but it wasn't. The Uber agent stayed on the line while I called the police. They didn't seem too concerned at first. "He didn't break in or hurt you," they said. "Call back if he returns." But he didn't leave. One of my neighbors, hearing the commotion, came over and told me what she'd seen. The man had walked to a nearby truck. Another man sat in the passenger seat. They didn't drive off. They just sat there, watching my house. The police finally took it seriously when my neighbor gave them a full description of the truck and the other man. But you know what still haunts me? Uber never found any record of an Anthony, Lori, or Robert being assigned to my order. No drivers, no bikes, just names, and a location that never changed. So what do you think? Was it a scam, a glitch, or was someone using the app to hunt for victims? Tell me in the comments, because I still don't know the answer, and I'm not sure I want to. The backyard was a disaster. Rusted tools, broken chairs, and a bent chain-link fence, just lying there, like someone had ripped it out of the ground. I knocked on the back door, peered through the grimy glass. Nothing but a cluttered storage room. Frustrated, I called the pizzeria to double-check the address. My coworker confirmed it. "Yeah, that's the right place. Weird, though. Nobody else has ever delivered there." So, like an idiot, I went back to the front, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. Would you have gone inside or left immediately? Let me know in the comments. The musty smell hit me first, like mildew and something metallic. I yelled, "Pizza's here." The piano stopped. Someone called out, "Over here!" And the piano started again, same repetitive tune. but the voice didn't sound right. It was strained, almost forced. The lights were still off, making it hard to see. I inched forward, heart pounding. Halfway into what I guessed was the foyer, I froze. Something felt wrong, like I was being watched. I called out again. "Sir? Yes, sorry. I have trouble walking. Can you bring it into the dining room, please?" There was a pause. Too long of a pause. I asked, "Which room, sir?" Another hesitation. Then, "Just through the living room. I'm in the dining room." That's when it clicked. The phone order never mentioned needing special assistance. Why didn't they say this earlier? My gut told me to leave. But what if it was just an old man? I didn't want to abandon the order if he truly needed help. So I crept toward the dining room. The music kept playing. Louder now. But something was off. Instead of stepping in, I leaned around the corner, just enough to peek inside. There was the piano, but the bench? Empty. No one was playing. The room itself was empty. No footsteps, no movement, just silence. That's when my survival instincts kicked in. I spun around, speed-walked to the front door, and slammed it shut behind me. Back at the pizzeria, I told my boss everything. He didn't even question it, especially after the customer never called back to ask about their food. But here's where it gets chilling. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up the address. The house had been foreclosed months ago. It was officially vacant. I wasn't delivering to a customer. Someone or something was luring me inside. I don't know what would have happened if I'd walked into that dining room. A robbery? Worse? I'll never know. But one thing's certain. Whoever called for that pizza was never planning to eat it. It was a Friday night, close to midnight. I was working the closing shift at a local pizza place, driving my beat-up Toyota. Nothing fancy, but perfect for zipping around town. My boss, Mario, handed me the last order for the night. One large pepperoni, the name on the ticket, Karen, but the address caught my eye. It was way out, 15 minutes from the shop. Most deliveries were within 5. I figured I'd get a fat tip for the drive, so I grabbed the pie, cranked up my playlist, and hit the road. I found the house easily, a small rundown place with peeling paint and a flickering porch light. One window on the first floor glowed faintly, but as I walked up the path, something weird happened. "Excuse me, that pizza's for us." We gave the wrong address. I turned to see a woman standing by the window of the house next door, mid-40s, messy hair, and this unsettling smile. I hesitated, but she waved me over like it was nothing. "Wait, what would you have done? Would you have handed over the pizza and left, or trusted the woman and gone to the door? Let me know in the comments." I knocked on the door, hard, since the doorbell was busted. Nothing for at least 30 seconds. Then a voice from inside. "1 second." Another minute passed before the door creaked open. 2 women stood there, both in their mid-40s. One, definitely Karen. The other, her friend. But the way they looked at me, it wasn't normal. They smiled, wide, almost rehearsed. Karen ran her eyes up and down, then called into the house, "Charles, come look how handsome the delivery boy is." Her friend giggled like a teenager. My face burned. I was shy around older women, and they were laying it on thick. Then Karen asked, "What time do you get off work?" I stammered something about this being my last delivery. That's when they invited me in. "1 glass of wine won't hurt." Right? I knew my friends would roast me forever if I said no, so I stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of lavender and something else, something sour. They sat me down on the couch, one on either side. The flirting didn't stop. "Your dimples are adorable. You're so cute when you're nervous." I forced down the wine, trying not to gag. Then Karen leaned in, almost whispering, "We want to show you something in the basement." I laughed nervously. "What is it?" "It's a surprise," they said, almost in unison. They wanted me to go first. My heart pounded. This was feeling less like a teenage fantasy and more like the start of a horror movie. I stepped to the top of the stairs and stared into the black void below. "Where's the light switch?" Karen's friend, giggled. "Leave the lights off. It's more fun that way." And then, I swear I saw something move, a hand or an arm, sliding out of sight. I froze, turned back, and caught the women creeping toward me, silent, like they didn't want me to notice. But when they saw me looking, they snapped back into their flirty act, laughing too loudly. That's when I realized this was a trap. I stepped out of the basement doorway and mumbled, "I need the cash for the pizza." But as I edged toward the front door, I saw him, a huge man, nearly filling the kitchen doorway. His face was blank, his voice cold. "Let's just make this easy." I dropped the pizza. "It's free." I bolted for the door, slammed it behind me, and sprinted to my car. As I fumbled with the keys, the man appeared by my passenger window, his breath fogging the glass. He tried the handle, locked. I didn't wait. I peeled out, tires screeching. Back at the shop, I told Mario everything. We called the non-emergency line, just in case. The cops said they'd check it out. But here's the thing. The house at the original address, empty, abandoned for months. To this day, I wonder what was waiting for me in that basement. What do you think was down there? Was it a robbery? Something worse? Let me know your theories in the comments. And if you ever get an order to the wrong address, don't go inside. After my first year of college, I spent the summer at home, delivering pizzas part-time. I worked for a small shop that didn't mind delivering to the most remote areas around rural Georgia. Quiet roads, scattered farms, and homes that felt completely cut off from the world. That summer was strange. I had deliveries that made my skin crawl, like getting a call from an abandoned warehouse or having a dog rip my pants in excitement over a pepperoni pizza. But nothing compares to the night I almost didn't make it back. It was around 10:30 p.m., close to closing time. I was already thinking about heading home when one last order slipped through. A single pizza to an address I'd never heard of. It was nearby, so the clerk accepted it without a second thought. I plugged the address into my phone and set off. The first red flag. There was no driveway, just a battered mailbox and a faint dirt trail, barely visible under my headlights. It didn't look like any proper road, more like something maintenance crews might use to reach power lines. But I kept going, bumping along the uneven path until a house appeared, if you could call it that. The place was massive, bigger than your average farmhouse, but falling apart. Windows boarded up, paint peeling, and surrounded by overgrown grass that swallowed what might have once been a yard. I parked near what I guessed was the walkway, keeping my headlights pointed at the porch. A delivery driver's survival rule. As I approached the front door, I realized there was no real door, just a huge weathered plank, leaning haphazardly against the frame. That was red flag number 2. 2 more warnings were scrawled right on the wood. A sheet of paper, taped crookedly, with round back, scribbled in black marker, and even worse, someone had carved Manson Family Ranch into the frame. Now, normally, I would have noped out right there, but this was my last delivery, and I wanted to get paid. So against every instinct, I walked around the house. The back door was real, but just as uninviting. Cobwebs stretched across the frame, and fresh spiderwebs clung to the handle, like no one had touched it in months. Still, I knocked. 1, 2, 3. I counted to 45. Nothing. I knocked again, counted again. Silence. No lights, no movement, just the buzzing of insects in the tall grass. And just as I turned to leave, I heard it, a voice, faint and muffled, from inside the house. Someone, angry but speaking too fast for me to understand. My stomach flipped and I froze, trying to decide whether to knock one last time or bolt. Then a new sound. Footsteps, running footsteps, coming from the woods behind me. What would you do right now? Freeze? Run? Or wait to see who's coming? Let me know in the comments, because what happened next still haunts me. I spun toward the trees, heart hammering in my chest. The moonlight barely lit the edge of the forest, but I saw her. An older woman, maybe in her 60s, stepping out from the underbrush. Her hair was long, tangled, hanging past her hips in thick matted strands. She wore a stained nightgown, once white, now a grimy beige. Barefoot, her feet were scraped, bloody, and covered in dirt. She stopped when she saw me, shaking her head slowly. No, honey," she muttered, her voice sharp and commanding. You get on out of here. Now." I froze. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. She stepped closer, hand outstretched, finger pointed straight at me. "You deaf or dumb?" she snapped, eyes wild. "Girls like you come out here, and they don't get to leave." That's when it hit me. This wasn't some spooky ghost story. This was real. I dropped the pizza and bolted. My car was still running, headlights cutting through the dark. As I sprinted, I heard a bang behind me, the wooden plank falling onto the porch. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. An older man, limping down the steps, waving his arms like he was guiding a plane. "Hey, come back here," he yelled. I didn't wait. I threw myself into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and floored it. Dirt and grass kicking up as I sped down the rough path toward the main road. 12 miles of pitch-black turns later, I made it back to town. I told my manager everything. He called the cops, but nothing ever came of it. No arrests, no reports. As far as I know, that house, and whoever lived there, just disappeared into the dark. I never delivered in that area again, and I never, ever forgot the place they called the Manson family ranch. I was 21, juggling rent, gas, and tuition by delivering pizzas. Most nights were forgettable, racing against the clock, dodging bad tips, and praying my beat-up car didn't break down. But one night, one delivery, changed everything. It was nearly midnight, and exhaustion clung to me like the smell of stale pepperoni. Just as I was about to clock out, my phone buzzed. Last order of the night, one large pepperoni. The address? A house on the outskirts of town, past the old cemetery, down a dead-end road swallowed by woods. Weird, but not unheard of. Small towns always have those forgotten pockets. The places locals avoid but never really talk about. I punched the address into my GPS, grabbed the pizza, and climbed into my car. The drive felt longer than it should have. Streetlights thinned out until the only glow came from my headlights, flickering like they were struggling against the thickening darkness. By the time I passed the cemetery, the air felt wrong, heavy, silent. Even my radio, which usually crackled with static in remote areas, went completely dead. Finally, I saw the house. It sat far back from the road. A weathered 2-story structure, paint peeling like dead skin, shutters hanging like broken limbs, no lights, no car in the driveway. It looked abandoned. My phone, no service. I double-checked the address. It matched perfectly. Swallowing my unease, I grabbed the pizza and walked up the creaking porch steps. Each board groaned under my weight, like the house itself didn't want me there. The air was cold, too cold for a summer night. And the silence. It wasn't peaceful. It was expectant. I knocked. The sound echoed, sharp and unnatural. For a moment, nothing, then thump, drag, footsteps, slow, heavy, as if someone inside was too tired or too broken to lift their feet. "Hello?" I called, trying to sound casual. "Pizza delivery." The footsteps stopped, right behind the door. The silence stretched, then the door creaked open. Just an inch, just enough for a pale, bony hand to slip out. The skin was almost translucent, veins like dark rivers beneath the surface seas. The fingers were long, knobby, trembling, as they held out the exact change for the pizza. If you were standing there, staring at that hand, would you take the money? Or would you drop the pizza and run? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious how many of you would have made the same mistake I did. I froze. Everything in me screamed, run, but I didn't. I was tired, annoyed, and honestly, just wanted to finish my shift. I reached for the money. That's when I heard it. "Please, don't leave me here." The voice was soft, desperate. It came from deeper inside the house. I yanked my hand back, heart pounding. "Hello? Are you okay?" The hand didn't move. It just hovered there, fingers twitching. "Please help me. They won't let me leave." I stepped back, nearly tripping over the porch railing. This wasn't funny. This wasn't normal. But against every instinct, I leaned closer, trying to peer through the crack in the door. Nothing. Just blackness. Like the house didn't just lack light, it consumed it. The footsteps started again, but now they were retreating, dragging deeper into the house. The hand slowly withdrew, and the door began to close. "Wait!" I shouted, stepping forward. "Slam!" The force rattled the porch. My breath hitched. "Don't go." The voice was faint now, barely a whisper. "Please, they won't let me leave." That was it. I dropped the pizza, spun on my heel, and bolted for my car. I didn't look back. Couldn't. I expected, knew, something would be chasing me. But the rearview mirror showed only darkness. Back at the restaurant, my manager raised an eyebrow as I stammered through the story. He pulled up the address. Nothing. No listing. No order. No house. "The system says that address doesn't exist," he muttered. "Are you sure you weren't just tired?" I quit a week later. I couldn't drive past that cemetery without my chest tightening, without hearing that whisper echoing in the back of my mind. "Don't leave me here.